Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the A-Side. I am your host, Riley. Today we'll be covering a band I've talked about before, the 1975. The 1975 has been one of my favorite new bands for years now. I guess they're not really new anymore, but one of my favorite bands to come out of the 2010s, I guess I could say. And yeah, they've got some great work. Yeah, I've been at odds with them ever since their 2020 album Notes in a Conditional Form. The review for that was actually my third album review ever, and it remains one of my best videos to this day, to be honest. But the 1975 are back with their newest offering entitled Being Funny in a Foreign Language. So, what do I think about it? Well, I don't really have a whole ton to say, but I think in this case, that's a good thing. For the most part, the 1975 are just making some quintessentially sounding the 1975 songs and nailing it. But before I get started, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's free, and you can always unsubscribe later if you want. Now, a part of me can't help but feel that a lot of being funny in a foreign language feels kind of done before. The 1975 play things very safe on this record. And I know what you're thinking. Well, Riley, on Notes in a Conditional Form, that record was bold and experimental and nobody liked it, including you, Riley. Well, you're right. I still hate Notes to this day. And I can't necessarily blame them for playing it safe this release. However, I just want to state, for the record, that it wasn't the sonic experimentation and new sounds that made Notes bad. Rather, it was Matty Healy's pretentious self-indulgence. The band tried all of these new sounds, yet most of them were half-hearted and unfinished. Take a song like Yeah, I Know, which feels so nothing. And a lot of Matty Healy's lyrics were questionable at best on Notes. And furthermore, the band has proved in the past that they can nail a new sound on a record like A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships, which takes on a modern pop sound. A Brief Inquiry is my favorite the 1975 album. Maybe I just expect too much from Matty in the 1975. I hold the opinion that the first three 1975 albums are some of the best indie pop records ever made. They're still records I have in rotation constantly. Hell, I'm even going to see the band live next month. All this being said, for playing it very safe, Being Funny in a Foreign Language is a pretty great album. Right off the bat, one huge compliment I can give it is that it cuts out all the filler that bloated the previous release. In fact, they cut out a lot of fat, coming in at 43 minutes. Being Funny is the shortest album the band has released to date. And the more I listen to this record, the more I think the return to form was, in the end, the right choice for the 1975. I think a lot of the fans of the self-titled album, like myself, are going to love Being Funny in a Foreign Language. A lot of these songs are very reminiscent of the debut, with a particular focus on organic instrumentation. And a lot of these songs are made up of these strong, groovy bass and bright 80s danceable guitars. This makes for some of the most fun songs 1975 have ever made. And very typical for the early 1975, the 1975 have a lot of relationship-based flavors lyrically, with Matty Healy's biting wit. Songs like I'm in Love with You, Happiness, Looking for Somebody to Love, and Oh Caroline. The main difference here is that the production on Being Funny is very light and airy. These songs feel very open and breathable, and I think that's really what sets this record apart from the self-titled on these tracks. Because there are tracks that sound a little different, but the entire album has this really kind of loose, airy, breathable vibe in the production, with the exception of the song About You, which we'll get to. I think Happiness is an absolute blast to listen to. I adore the chorus in this song as it calls out an amateur lover. I think the weird synths, unlike the bridge, are really cool and kind of out of nowhere, but I like them a lot. I mean, much like a lot of the songs on this record, the grooves are just so infectious. I think I'm in Love with You is the most self-titled sounding song on the album. It's also among the catchiest songs on the record. Oh Caroline has some great grooves on it. I love the guitar line throughout the song, and you can't help but move when it's on. I also think Matty gives a really amazing vocal performance on this song, switching seamlessly between classic the 1975 melodies and something with a more modern flavor to it. Looking for Somebody to Love is the band firing on all cylinders, proving that they're all excellent musicians. This song features some of the band's best bass work to date, and some of the most quintessentially the 1975 sounding guitars. I love it so much. However, the slow moments on this record are where I really start to feel the whole "this has been done before" that I mentioned earlier very heavily. All I Need to Hear and Human 2 aren't necessarily bad songs, but they're pretty boring ones that don't add much to the album, and I will be skipping them on all future listens of this record. However, not all the songs play it safe. And unlike the previous album, I think the experimentation works on being funny in a foreign language. The one moment that especially sticks out to me as being particularly bold is the song Part of the Band. Especially as the lead single to this record, it's a very strange song, and musically really is the outlier on this record. Releasing it as a lead single was a weird choice. I love it though. It's probably my favorite song on the record. I feel like in some parts it's some of the ideas on notes, but fully cooked up and fully finished. Take the very twangy country-esque guitar solo near the end. It's a moment I absolutely love. It's got a chill and nostalgic vibe to it. The strings on this song are unlike any others I've heard, too. They're so clean sounding, like, so clean. I've never heard anything like it. They have such a commanding presence, and I love it. The swell of strings between the first and second verse is gorgeous. It fills me with a kind of determination. And Maddie's Elvis impression is strange, but it's a burst of personality I really enjoy. The sampling going into the chorus is a cool touch. Speaking of the chorus, I love it. It's subversive in the sense that instead of being something big, it softens up. It's extremely gentle and soft. Maddie pulls out this light falsetto along with a gently played acoustic guitar and shimmering glockenspiel. The chorus makes me feel like I'm looking at the clouds in a blue sky on a cool summer day as a kid again. Throw in some saxophone at the end, and you've got yourself a pretty amazing addition to the 1975's discography. I also love the lyrics on this track, especially when Matty Healy starts to satirize himself by saying, "Am I ironically woke, the butt of my joke, or am I just some post-coke average skinny bloke calling his ego imagination?" To me, this song is Matty Healy calling himself into question, his entire self, but in a very interesting way. Opening track in 1975 harkens back to a brief inquiry into online relationships with some really interesting lyrics about living in the social media age, except this time it's written with an extreme apathy toward the youth, examining how beauty standards and social media can fuck with their body image and mental health. And you hear this in the lyrics, "I've heard it's on Vogue to be super thin, but your friends aren't thick so they can't come in." He discusses the dehumanization and apathy that comes when you see people behind a screen constantly while always scrolling through some app. He discusses how these kids who have grown up with these social pressures and the social disconnect have moved to coping through drug and alcohol use just to feel something. It's a really interesting examination of it all, and it's really heartbreaking when Maddie repeatedly says, "Sorry if you're living and you're 17. As someone who's a part of that very youth, at 19 years old, I really feel what he's talking about and I understand it. I myself have tried to get past it, but it's hard having these certain pressures and ideals that come with the social media era. And I feel like Maddie is really talking directly to his fan base here, as a lot of people who listen to 1975 are my age or a little younger. That 16 to maybe 21 range. And the song itself is a very pretty song that feels like it's glimmering the whole time with scattered piano, strings, and sax. I will say I'm a little annoyed that they keep titling tracks the 1975, and it's not the "Go Down," "Soft Sound," "Midnight," "Car Lights," like in the first three records. We all know and love that, but it's not really a valid criticism, just a point. This song is great. I also think About You is a really beautiful song. The washed out synths and reverb vocals create such a dreamy soundscape that's so easy to get lost in. I think Wintering has a really cool jangly sound to it, reminiscent of a band like The Smiths or R.E.M. When We Were Together is a very sweet song, and I think it works very well as the closer. The fiddles and the country instrumentation make this song very nostalgic sounding to me, and I think that's what the band was going for with this song. When all is said and all is done, being funny in a foreign language is a safe return to form for the 1975, but I believe it's one that works magnificently. The band stops trying to be the next Radiohead. Instead, they focus on being the 1975, and I think they knock it out of the park. This record balances retro pop rock bangers and beautiful, lush songs throughout a brief 40-minute runtime, adding yet another great album into the 1975 canon. 8- out of 10. What did you think of being funny in a foreign language? Leave that down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.